It's been decades now the Philippines has found itself stuck in a trap, the trade trap. Every year they import far more than they export. And the numbers, they're not just bad, they're shocking. In 2023, the Philippines exported only $73 billion worth of goods, but imported around $133 billion worth. That's a $60 billion merchandise trade gap. Now let's ask some real questions. Why are Philippines exports so low? Is it that no one wants to buy Philippine goods, or is there some other reason deep down? Stay tuned. Let's understand one simple thing. The country is spending much more on foreign products than it earns from selling its own goods outside. And what's even more surprising? This isn't just a temporary problem. It's a long-standing pattern, and one that makes the Philippines stand out in Southeast Asia, but for all the wrong reasons. Unlike its ASEAN neighbors, like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, which regularly post trade surpluses, the Philippines is the odd one out. In 2023 alone, Malaysia ran a $20 billion surplus, Indonesia nearly $30 billion, and Vietnam over $34 billion. But the Philippines, a giant trade deficit. So how is the country surviving this economic imbalance? That's where services and overseas income come in. In 2024, the Philippines brought in over $38 billion in remittances from overseas workers, $13 billion in tourism, and about $30 billion from business process outsourcing, BPO. Combined, that's over $80 billion, enough to offset much of the merchandise trade gap. The overall current account deficit, just $17.5 billion. But is that really enough? Tell us in the comments. To find out more, let's dig a little deeper into the Philippines economy. For much of its post-war era, the Philippines followed an economic model that actually discouraged exports. In the 1950s to 1970s, it embraced import substitution, protecting local industries with high tariffs and quotas, trying to build self-sufficiency. But the result? Expensive imported goods, inefficient industries, and a tiny export base. Only a few sectors, such as sugar, coconut, and mining, looked outward. Under Ferdinand Marcos in the 70s and early 80s, some export incentives were introduced, but trade policy remained fragmented and confusing. Manufacturers became too comfortable selling to a protected local market rather than competing globally. It wasn't until the 1990s and 2000s that serious trade liberalization began. Tariffs were cut, import controls lifted, and the Philippines joined the WTO and ASEAN Free Trade Zone. In 2023, it even ratified RCEP, but even today, trade reform remains incomplete. Agriculture still suffers from high tariffs and quotas. Red tape, customs delays, and uneven infrastructure continue to hurt exporters. And while the government has tried to attract investment through the BOI and PEZA, the results have been mixed. The electronics industry is by far the Philippines' largest export, making up nearly half of all goods sold abroad. In December 2024 alone, electronics brought in over $3.1 billion. But much of this is low-margin assembly work. Components are imported, assembled locally, and shipped out again, often without capturing much value. Outside of electronics, the picture is even bleaker. Agricultural exports are small and growing slowly. Garments and textiles struggle to compete with Vietnam and Bangladesh. Furniture, chemicals, and minerals bring in modest revenues, but have never been able to drive a surplus. So why has the country failed to build strong export champions? Partly it's a policy failure. Incentives like the CARS program tried to revive auto manufacturing, but 70% of vehicles are still imported. And despite having some success with electronics and BPOs, the country still attracts far less foreign direct investment than neighbors. Another key factor: limited free trade agreements. The Philippines has no free trade agreement with the US or the EU, two of the world's biggest markets. In contrast, Vietnam and Thailand already have free trade agreements with the EU. Indonesia has agreements with Japan and Korea. The lack of preferential access makes Philippine exports less competitive. In short, the Philippines' economy is stuck in a loop: a weak industrial base, over-reliance on services and remittances, and a persistent trade deficit that makes it the outlier in ASEAN. Until the country builds a more diverse, competitive export base and fixes the deeper structural issues in trade and industrial policy, the gap is likely to remain constant. If you liked this piece of content, hit like, and for more such pieces, please subscribe. And as always, keep watching Global Economics.